Well, hello and welcome back to the Tao Manifesting Tarot reading, the most unusual, the most realistic, the most comprehensive metaphysical reading centered on tarot that there is probably on the internet for sure. What makes us different is two things primarily. First of all, I keep it real. We are living at a time in history where humanity can literally end itself. Now, I'm only going to go back 7,000 years because that's about as far back as we can go and be relatively sure that we have most of the facts about human beings on the planet. Go farther back than 7,000 years, you got the Younger Dryas, the Ice Age, and boy, you start popping out around 12, 13,000, maybe 14,000 BC. And we know that there were some major civilizations, outstanding, magnificent, and in some ways technologically more advanced than anything that we have today. But we have bits and pieces. We really don't have a storyline yet. So I'm sticking with the last 7,000 years. And in that time period, we've poisoned the air, poisoned the water, poisoned the food, poisoned our society, tried to block out the sun. Oh, yeah, of course, then we have to worry about some sort of energy pulses from the sun. We also have asteroids or comets we got to worry about. And then, of course, there's the earthquakes and volcanoes, those kinds of things, along with turning our planet into a garbage pit for profit. Oh, and one more thing, too. Now we have the threat of artificial intelligence, robots taking over the world. They tell us it could be 3, 5 years where they really begin to take things over. Don't know yet whether it's really good or bad. We're being slowly indoctrinated. You're seeing in sports, especially baseball, they're leaning towards robotic umpires. And you could make a case because calling balls and strikes in baseball has been one of the toughest jobs any umpire has had, but any sport, the umpires are and referees are really kind of tested. So, slowly getting us used to this idea of technology running our lives. And I'm sure it's planned. I'm sure it's planned. So, what I do with the tarot reading, by the way, I've done tarot for over 20 years. And I've come to determine in that time, at least from my point of view, that it doesn't predict anything. Tarot doesn't predict anything, but it is the science of potential, your potential to react to energy. I do a 3 card read. From there, we have a storyline. We put the energies of the 3 cards together and you get a frequency. That frequency helps you to manifest. That is your kryptonite. But that energy has to come from within inside you and go out into the world, not the other way around. So if you got a laptop, desktop, smartphone, any kind of artificial intelligence, that's information from the outside coming into you. Bad juju. You are the one who has to experience life on your terms, take that energy, and then put it back out into the world. That's how it works. Second thing that separates the Tao Manifesting Tarot is the fact that I use astrology and numerology. I've done astrology and numerology for more than 50 years. They are the science of cycles within cycles within cycles within. It gets to be very difficult. It gets to be very. One of the biggest problems I've had in the years of doing astrological readings is just trying to make my way through the chop suey because there are so many things to consider. You got the 12 houses and the wheel is turning. You have the nadir, you have the midheaven, you got the ascendant, descendant, you have different aspects by quintiles and sextiles and squares and oppositions and all kinds of things. Then you got the planets moving around as well, in and out of one house or another. And it just gets to be crazy. and you have all you can do to make sense out of it. Now, one of the things that I have done when doing astrological charts for people is focusing them on one particular item or situation, because that way, as opposed to trying to just spread out and take all the knowledge in, I can focus it and give a much better idea. And again, we're talking energy, right? Frequency. But on a little different level because we're talking about astrology. So the astrology and the numerology are important because you've heard the expression, history repeats itself. Well, it's true, and astrology proves it. We had a certain kind of energy with two particular planets back when we signed the Declaration of Independence. It takes Pluto 250 years to go around the solar system. Guess what? 2 years ago, those two planets, Uranus and Pluto, were in the exact same position. What do we have? Kind of an American independence movement. Oh, by the way, too, we had another thing. Neptune was in a certain place. The planet Neptune was in a certain place in the sky when we began the Civil War. Well, it takes about 165 years or so for Neptune to go all around the solar system. Guess what? It's back in the same spot. What are we dealing with? Looks like it could be a civil war. The nation is very, very divided, but that's not the only thing. The world is divided. And unfortunately, the deep state is dividing us between men and women, black and white, rather than saying, who the hell are pulling our chains? Who's been pulling our chains? It's a class warfare. They don't want that. But you're seeing people are waking up. People are aware of the fact that they've been played by the very rich. And that over the decades, they've stolen our money from us. You know that when the rich Jewish bankers created the Federal Reserve in 1913, a dollar would be worth, let's say for the sake of discussion, 100 pennies. But because they print money out of nothing, literally, they print money out of nothing, and then they charge us, the American taxpayer, for this nothing money. It's called compound interest, used to be called usury. Adam Scott in the 1700s said, people don't like usury. They've bad name. Let's change it to capitalism. Sounds so much better. Well, whatever name you name it, those 100 pennies in 1913 when the Federal Reserve started is now worth 1 penny. And you're wondering why you're having such a bad time trying to make ends meet. This has been going on for a long time. Any war, any recession, any depression was always driven and has always been driven by the banks. That's how they get richer. That's how they have more control. So this is what separates Tao Manifesting Tarot reading. I keep it real and I give it context. And today we're talking about an iron fist in a velvet glove. Yeah. Doesn't look nearly as threatening when you have a velvet glove over an iron fist, but boy, it's just as devastating. So that's more or less what we're working on at this point. We are dealing with that kind of issue. So let's see if we can't get to it. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, I want to talk about the email. You can email me, and I wish that you would. More and more people are picking up. A little slow, but they're picking up. Tao-tarot@proton.me. Tao-tarot@proton.me. It is a way that you and I can communicate. It's a way for us to have a chance to keep in touch, be in touch. You can tell me I'm full of shit. You can tell me you like me. You can tell whatever you want to tell me. It's okay. Doesn't make any difference. I just want to hear from you. It's important. That's the reason I'm doing this. I want to help you out. I want to give you the real information that you can use on a daily basis. And that's the point. Tao-tarot@proton.me. By the way, for those who think that the .me I had anything to do with, they don't. Proton has two classifications. .com, that's for business. .me for the individual. And for some reason, they assigned me to the individual, so it's a .me. It's not an ego thing. Tao-tarot@proton.me. So we kind of lined up all the basics. Let's get down to the astrology part. For the past, well, since the middle of July, just after the 4th of July, I was very much aware of the fact that next summer, July the 4th, 2026, America will celebrate its 250th anniversary. So I figured, well, let's take a look at American history, but from an astrological point of view, because you can pick up some insights, some things that maybe I missed. Lead me in directions where I can give you more accurate view of American history. And American history is like virtually every other history in American and the world. The banks rule, the rich rule. And right away from 1492, when King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain needed money to finance Christopher Columbus to come to the so called New World, from that point forward, the bankers grabbed hold of the New World, as we called it, and they held on for dear life. In fact, around 1600 or so, European Jews helping out the King of England who wanted to go to war. What else is new? He said, I got to go to war. I think he was going to fight the French, always the French. He said, but I have any money. Can you help me out? And they said, sure, we'll do that, but we want one additional favor. He said, sure, what? We want to start our own bank. Okay, good. But here's the trick. We want to call it the Bank of England. You will have nothing to do with it. I mean, you can have stock in it or shares in it, but we will own and control the Bank of England. We just want that name. He said, hey, I want money. We'll make the trade. From that time forward, the Bank of England was a tool for the European bankers, and they set their sights on the colonies, and they tried to get a bank just like the Bank of England here in America. They tried once, they tried twice. Andrew Jackson stopped them. They tried to kill him. They failed. Abraham Lincoln stopped them, messed with them. They killed him. William McKinley was killed for messing with the bankers. By 1913, they had had enough. And so they were getting ready to put together what we call today the Federal Reserve, but they had 4, 5, maybe 6 very wealthy families, some of the richest people on the earth, who were part of that group who said, no, we don't want the Federal Reserve. We don't want that kind of bank. Well, the money of people who wanted the bank said, we can't put up with this. So they gave them tickets to the Titanic, and they sunk the Titanic. Their opposition was dead, drowned, and so they pass a law where they become a law unto themselves. Federal Reserve. Oh, by the way, they also pass income tax. Never before done. Well, for a little while during the Civil War with Lincoln, but basically they established the income tax because they had to have money funneled through the government to the Fed. Also, they got women working because you had more workers, you had more taxes. Also, they funded the World War I thing. They wanted to make some social political moves and get richer. Well, coincidentally, for World War I, you had two brothers basically controlling banks on opposite sides. Brother A was here in the United States funding the American portion. Brother B was in Germany funding the European portion. It would appear that they were fighting one another. The hell no, they both were adding up shekels like you couldn't believe. But that's how it appeared. And from that time on, 1913 on, America was bought and sold. We find ourselves today looking at the period between 2015 and 2020. This is where our current civil war begins to set up, because what happens is we've taken a couple big hits. We had the housing crisis, we had the dot-com crisis. Financially, Americans were hurting. They were losing jobs. It was not impossible by any means, but it was obviously difficult. And when you start doing those kinds of things, you get political polarization. And so that's exactly what happened. We also had the weather and climate attack us, at least that's the way it looks like. We had different kinds of hurricanes and all kinds of talk about the climate and stuff. So we have the political polarization, which is problematic. We have weather and climate attacks, I'll call it, for lack of a better word. That's problematic. People started to feel more than they did think. Facts got in the way of their feelings. They were hurting. They weren't clear on what the problem was, but they knew they were getting screwed. And right around this time, Big Pharma becomes terrorists. We wouldn't know that between 2015 and 2020, but when we get to 2020, 2021, we begin to get the idea. So we had a lot of stuff going against us. Political polarization, weather climate issues, Big Pharma becoming terrorists. And through all of this, people hurt. And they let their hurt and fear lead them over truth. Yeah, 2015, 2020, the Civil War sets up for the one that we're going through right now. Astrologically, we had a very interesting combination of things. We had Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, all in fire and air, which gives a lot of steam. So there was a sudden shift. People could feel the energy. Remember, people were feeling. They weren't interested in facts. It was feelings, and they could feel something had turned, but they couldn't put their finger on it. That made them even more frightened. At the same time, we also had Neptune and Pluto, water and earth. We're looking to change, the Pluto part says, but Neptune was saying, I don't have any idea where I'm going. Pisces, Neptune was in Pisces. It's home there, but that doesn't make it better. Pisces can be great insight or great delusion. And that's where we were at. Political polarization, the weather and climate not doing well. Big Pharma is slowly becoming a terrorist. We're not fully aware of that yet, but you can feel it. And people were led between 2015 and 2020 by their feelings, not by the facts. They didn't have many facts at that point to grab onto. So let's move on to the meme of the day. I had to do this because it just made me laugh. You actually giggle out loud. Has to do with climate change, which we are now showing is bullshit. It's a lie. Our environment is poisoned. Our environment is critical, not the climate. But anyway, it's a picture of a cat, and the words are, "Then the cows farted, and all the people died." Remember they sell us that stuff, bovine flatulence? Yeah. Here's the missing link, tying it all together for you. Life will knock you down, but your determination to get back up will define your future. That's where we're at right now. That's why we're in this polarization. That's why we're in some way, form, or fashion into a kind of civil war. And the energy here for today is very clear. And that's what makes it difficult. Iron fist and a velvet glove. We're beginning to see that velvet glove come off. But there are still people, for whatever reason, and there's a shitload of reasons, they just don't want to see. They want to continue to feel. Feeling over fact going to make a real tough situation. So let's get to the tarot. Here's the focus. Here's the energy. Here's the doorway for you. Three of Swords. Conflict, heartache. If you're familiar with the card, it is a heart with three swords stabbed in it. Swords are information. You have been lied to, and you know it by now. You know it. You're hurting, and because you're hurting, you're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. Not good. Conflict and heartache. The next card that we have here is the Hangman. What you got to do is you got to flip the script. That's not going to be easy to do because people are hurting. They're still squeezing. You notice what's happening in the stores. Food is not being replenished. Shelves are getting kind of thin. Choices are getting kind of thin. Cars are impossible to be able to afford, even if you can. Trying to fix them gets to be impossible, and they're cutting you out. Remember, they said you're going to have nothing and be happy. They don't want us to have cars. They don't want us to have private homes. They've told us that real clearly, and now they're, again, taking off the gloves, the iron fist in the velvet glove. We are seeing for real. And the final tarot card is the Nine of Wands. It's going to take stamina and courage. And because we're talking about the iron fist and the velvet glove, that not only appeals to the bastards trying to run the world and run our lives, but it also appeals to us. We have to have that inner determination. We have to be locked in. We have to have the courage. We have to have the stamina. Get over the heartache. It's done. By not making improvements, it's just going to continue. You got to flip the script in your head, and that's tough because we're used to things a certain way. The way doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. So we're going to have to work on our stamina and courage. That iron fist and a velvet glove. Be strong. Hey, we're out of time. Thank you for being here. I realize money don't buy time, so when you make an investment in this tarot reading, I consider it special. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. I cannot emphasize enough how important that is right now with what's going on in the internet. Between now and the next time you and I get together and do tarot, peace and blessings.